What's going on there, guys? Good afternoon. It's the Earthmaster here on the live stream on this finally Monday. Probably not good to say that, right? Dreaded Monday is more like it. August 8th, 2022, about 12:24 p.m. California time. Latest quake shows a 1.1 earthquake up here on the globe. Not for sure why it's showing that because I have it set at about 2.1 and above, but that's where it's at. On the Earthquake 3D globe, we are still watching some earthquake activity really ramp up around the Puerto Rico area. Also had some activity off the coast into the northern end of the Cascadia subduction zone a little bit earlier this morning. But first, let's go ahead and check into the Space Weather Department. Had quite a show last night, unfortunately not here in California, but down into some of the upper tier states in the area of Montana, Pennsylvania, looks like South Dakota, North Dakota, or I think at least North Dakota, seen some auroras kicking up there from an unexpected G2 class storm. Now, we were watching for some space weather activity to ramp up a little bit, but not as significant as it did last night. We've seen G2 storm conditions kick up into the KP index of 6. That is the threshold for a G2 storm. Now, of course, not a big deal. A lot of folks wondering about the potential issues and whatnot with with solar storms. G1, G2, not really all that bad unless it's a long duration type event. It's once we get up into the higher categories above the G3 category that could cause some issues around the power grids. But looking at the latest activity right now, things have kind of died off a little bit. Still seeing KP indexes around the 3 range. There is the current aurora forecast for the northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere down south. Looks like they're still getting quite a show for the folks in Antarctica. Well, maybe how many folks are down there? Not for sure. But can't be that many. It's got to be awfully brutal and cold down there. To be late at night looking at the auroras. That'd be crazy to even think about that. At the northern latitudes here in the northern hemisphere, possibly if you're out there in the dark around the looks like portions of Russia and areas to the west here could see the aurora still kicking off there, depending it's dark out. They are expecting the storming to continue for a little bit throughout the day today and tomorrow, it looks like as well, before we go back into the green category, which is very minimal solar weather conditions. So, you know, these things kind of pop up. They kind of just come up out of the blue, or maybe they're stronger than what they're forecasted. But man, we've seen the density really kick up here on the protons, and also the speed ramped up above the 600 kilometer range there. It's a pretty significant event for a little while. The spaceweather.com site here talks about the surprise geomagnetic storm. There it is, talking about 600 km per second there, ultimately triggering a G2 class storm. This event was not in the forecast, so the resulting auroras came as a surprise. But hey, who doesn't like surprises, right? I know I do. As long as you're not bad. I don't like bad surprises. I better rephrase that. Looks like some auroras again was observed into areas around Montana, the Dakotas, in the Pennsylvania area. All lucky folks there getting a snapshot of the auroras in the sky. I mean, that's absolutely stunning and beautiful. That is on my bucket list along with a hurricane. But hey, I'm crazy like that, so that's kind of what I like to do. All right, looking at the earthquake activity here. Again, we had some activity up north here into the, well off the coast of the Vancouver Island ranges there. 4.6 at 10 kilometers. Now, this is on an area back prior to the Cascadia subduction zone. The subduction zone itself begins right where this red line is, and of course subducts underneath the North American plate. That's going to be the Juan de Fuca plate as a whole. But if you want to call it what it really is, you got the Explorer plate up here, right about here, where that cutoff is. And then you got the Juan de Fuca plate, the bigger of the 3 microplates. And then right across here southward, or down on your screen, is the Gorda plate. So all this eventually going to be shoved underneath the North American plate, and but that's a long ways from now. But it is building up quite a bit of strain. 322 years since the last major event occurred there on the Cascadia. That was a 9.0, or maybe a little bit larger than 9.0. So things are, yeah, they're building up, definitely. Also, let's see what we got for the all magnitudes here. We have been seeing a little bit of activity north of Seattle, kicking up outside of Vancouver. But this earthquake right here, I think, has to do with. Let me show you guys real quick here. I still got to get that whiteboard here for the computer screen. So this is a tremor activity from yesterday. Notice a wide swath of tremor. We're looking at 273 epicenters of tremor last night. What this is are not earthquakes, but those plates I showed you right here. This plate, we'll just call it as a whole, as a Juan de Fuca plate, is being shoved underneath the North American plate here, and these tremors are basically vibrational frequencies from the movement of the shoving, if you will. Not a sudden release of earthquakes, but a slow vibrational shove underneath the North American plate, and that's what's picking up. That's what this tremor activity is. Now, I've always said here on the channel that I believe the tremor activity adds further strain up to the locked area, and I believe when we see the big one eventually, that we'll be looking back and see that there was quite a bit of tremor either on that day that it occurred or just prior. But that activity up here, that tremor activity, I believe has been the contributor to this earthquake that we've seen back upstream. Now, I know it's a distance away here from the Cascadia subduction zone itself, but as a regional pressure, I believe this here had to do with the tremor activity that we're seeing up here into the Pacific Northwest yesterday. I want to see what it looks like today, and then we'll get a little bit better picture on the potential that this was caused from the activity, the tremor in the region. Again, a 4.6 off the coast of Vancouver Island ranges. There is some further movement up north around Glacier, Washington, around Mount Baker. Looks like a couple ones kicking up here. I know this area, I don't think it's monitored all that significantly with the seismologist, but we will check it out here real quick. Let's check out Mount Baker, see what we got. Yeah, we only got, at least here around the specific volcano, we only got one seismograph here. Hopefully they mount. I think they were going to mount some more up there pretty soon. That would be a fun job, right? Hiking back there in the mountains, setting up some seismograph stations. So this one here is not, let's see what we got here. This one, 120, looks like maybe around the 145 mark is what it is. Let's double check that and see when these earthquakes struck. See, these are a little bit different. UTC time 0151, and then way later 0934. 0151 could be one of these, definitely could be one of those. 0151, and then 0934 is going to be this one here. So these are, it looks like they may have left out one earthquake, because I see two earthquakes right here. Even though there's two here, there's only one for one time stamp and one for the much later earthquake here down at the 0900 time frame. So there looks like there was another one. But all this other activity is interference. It's not earthquakes. I'm not for sure what it is, but it's definitely not earthquake activity. This is kind of what earthquakes look like right there on the screen, folks. Those are not super well defined, but this is the only seismograph station that we have in the area, and that kind of looks like where at least one of them was, where the one of the 1.1s were. So looking back over the last week or so, there's been a small little amount of earthquake activity, mostly in the 1.5 range and below. But for now, you know, it's typical to see activity at volcanoes, microquakes, even sometimes swarms, is when the GPS movements and uplift and whatnot become visible in terms of uprising that we would have to worry. But I don't believe there's anything to worry about in the Mount Baker area for now. Let's It's been awfully quiet, though, in the Cascades, right? Man, this Sierra Nevada, Mount Lassen, Mount Shasta. Only a matter of time before it's not. Okay, a little activity around Mount Rainier and also Mount St. Helens. So we got that little trend of activity kicking up across the region of the volcanoes. Let's check out Mount St. Helens. This is the area that's been seeing quite a bit of microquake swarm over the past few months. We've been kind of noticing it, but I believe it's all got to do with the gradual subsidence of the volcano itself, the caldera region. We've been looking at GPS monitoring stations for a while, and I do not see any vertical uplift. It's all lower. Looking at the seismographs here, a couple earthquakes up on the map. If you do want to check out for yourself the GPS stations, and check it out. Let me back out here a little bit so you guys can see what's out there. Pretty much anywhere you can imagine, there's GPS stations. So some of them work, some of them are pretty useful, and some are just kind of dead in the water, so to speak. But there's not, let's see, there's not a whole lot up here around Mount Baker, unfortunately, in terms of GPS stations. I'm sure there's independent ones off of this site, but man, they don't have any specifically right there. Mount St. Helens, they do, and this is one of the stations that we've been monitoring right here around where the swarming activity is kind of kicking up. Although this is the older data, gonna have to check out this other seismograph station here, or not seismograph, but GPS station. And there's that gradual, this is a vertical uplift trend. Now, since about 2018, there's been a gradual decline. Occasionally, it looks like we get bumps up here of uplift. Seems like it's on a regular sequence there of every 12 months or so. And but if you notice here, the gradual trend is downward, even up into the where we're at right now. So unless we see this thing take a major turn upward, that's when I would start worrying with an increase in earthquakes above the magnitude of what we're seeing with those microquakes. So nothing to worry about for now in the Mount St. Helens area. All right, moving on. Earthquake activity in California. Not a whole lot in northern Cal around the San Andreas Fault, the creeping section outside of Soledad, around the Diablo Range, seeing a little bit of swarming today. Let's bring up the all magnet, or the 2.5 and above. It looks like they did have a 3.3 in the mix there in the Pinnacles area of California, right in the middle of that swarming area along this segment of the San Andreas Fault. Further down south, pretty spotty, wouldn't you say? Look at that. Look at Ridgecrest. Only a handful of specks here on the map. That's kind of a very quiet time right now for Ridgecrest area. Also Southern California as well. No major swarms to report at all. And things look, again, pretty minimal here along this area of the state, aside from the little swarm up north on the San Andreas Fault. Yellowstone National Park, I told you the USGS would eventually get to these earthquakes that we were watching over the weekend. Let's go ahead and bring up the Yellowstone seismograph stations here. And looks like even overnight we've seen a couple more earthquakes here at Yellowstone National Park. Been having a little bit of swarming off and on. The last one here earlier this morning, it looks like around the, what is that, UTC time of about 11:40. Let's see what they got. 11:40 right here at 2.8. 11:38. I was off a couple minutes there, but yeah, 2.8. That's the 2.8 showing up here pretty nicely across the map. Notice that it even shows up across this area here along the eastern section of the park. So that's kind of a good way to judge these earthquakes. The same for if we see this type of scenario, this type of signature over here along the eastern side, but less over here. That can kind of give us a good judgment of the magnitudes, because a lot of times they don't report the earthquakes that are occurring along the eastern section of the park. So it looks like prior to that 2.8, we've seen a couple more smaller quakes as well. And you can see it right there on the map, mostly around the Yellowstone Lake area, the western portion out here. Pretty shallow, one of them pretty deep, or not super deep, but a little deeper than the others. So just kind of, you know, swarms come and go there as well, folks. It's when the big ones would kick up that we would have to start worrying. A couple twos and a couple threes out there around Minotone. 3.3 out there around Minotone. And aside from that, just, typical day out there in earthquake country, western Texas. Yes, it is earthquake country out there with the a lot of injection wells and oil pumping operations. Same for Oklahoma up here. Looks like a couple ones in the mix out there. One earthquake out around the New Madrid zone and 1.7 near Dale, Arkansas. 16 kilometers deep, getting some movement going on down below there. Might have to watch that pretty closely. Over here around Elgin, South Carolina, or whoa, this is way up north. I was thinking this is in South Carolina here because we're used to seeing this little swarm out here within this region, but now we're getting some activity up north outside of the Greensboro area near High Point, Archdale 2.0 at 6.2 kilometers. Let's see here. Looks like there's a couple houses out there on those road networks. So I'm sure at least one or two people may have felt that earthquake out there. The sensitive people that can feel any kind of odd shaking like I do around the area. There it is. A couple of folks reported feeling that light 2.0. All right, rest of the country pretty quiet. Puerto Rico though, man, that area swarming like crazy right now. Within the region, 45 earthquakes. Checking out the 2.5 and above, there's a good handful of them too. Largest one so far looks to be the 3.8, excuse me, 3.8 kicking up. There's quite a few threes in there as well. Puerto Rico, of course, we covered this a little bit a couple nights ago. That what was that, 6-pointer that kicked back here in 2020. Been having a pretty good swarm since then. It does sit in a major subduction zone area. You got the Puerto Rico Trench up north, Mariota's Trough down here in the south. A lot of squeezing and uplifting going on here of the Puerto Rico area. Very hazardous zone though for some mega quakes up here, and I'm sure down here as well. So we watch these swarms pretty closely, and right now today's definitely a pretty active day of them. South America region got not a whole lot of activity kicking up here in South America. Just got another 3.2 in the Vancouver Island ranges of Canada. We'll check out the EMSC model here in a little bit, so some activity kicking up there. South America, again, not a whole lot. A couple earthquakes on the map. I believe this is from yesterday, South Sandwich Islands area, 5.0. And some movement outside of the Fiji area. And up along the Papua New Guinea region, we did see a 5.6 last night there in that area. Near the, what is that, Kokopo, Papua New Guinea, 35 kilometers there. And some activity stretching up here around this, off of this plate boundary here. It's still within the Indonesia area, just south of there actually, a 4.5 in the sea area. Western portion here across the rest of the country, this area, not a whole lot going on. There's a couple small earthquakes being reported around Greece. All right, now let me check out this EMSC model here real quick and see what we got for the activity in the Canada region, because my phone's been going off a little bit with earthquake notifications here. Let me zoom into this area real quick. Maybe there it is. There's a little bit. Is that the 3.2 that just came in? Yeah, that's a 3.2. So still seeing a little bit of activity, a little bit of further pressure in this region of the Cascadia. Definitely have to watch that. Let me check out the Earthquakes Canada map. Maybe we can see a little bit better view in the area. Go down here. There we go. Whoa, it's a little on the active side here on this map. So got movement here around BC region. It looks like a 3.3 near Fort St. John, but we're going to check out this area along the Cascadia. On this map anyway, the Cascadia is going to be in the blue line right where the hand is, and it goes southward, of course, towards the Northern California area. Here's where the activity, it looks like they're having a lot more movement than the EMSC is reporting. There's that 4.7 striking earlier this morning over a late overnight time frame at 10 kilometers, and it looks like there's a pretty good swarm of activity kicking up here into this region. Quite a few threes and some twos, and not to mention the most recent quake here in the area, 3.2 coming in at 10 kilometers. So We got swarming activity kicking up here around the Pacific Plate. This is going to be the Pacific Plate over here. And in this model, you can see that line of activity right here where that where these two microplates are somewhat kind of fused together, but they still get quakes. But overall, you know, the big picture, the Juan de Fuca Plate as a whole. But right here on the Explorer Plate, up here to the north of this line, there's a little microplate Explorer Plate. That's where we're seeing some further activity. So regionally as a whole here around BC region, northern end of the Cascadia, definitely showing quite a bit of seismic increase in pressure today. Not a whole lot down south. Remember, down in Southern California. So definitely might have to watch this area pretty closely. Alaska has been, let's see what we got for microquakes up there. A little bit of activity, not a whole lot. But we could start to see things kick up here in the northern part of the plate today. Just something to watch pretty closely there with that ongoing swarm. Hawaii, not a whole lot going on. Nothing within the last hour or so. It looks like most of the activity confined to the Pahala southeastern region down here. Aside from that, I'm sure a beautiful day out there in the Big Blue Pacific. All right, what else we got? We checked out solar weather activity. Again, I think conditions are going to be calming down right now in the solar weather department. And we'll see what the solar flare activity ramps up to. Right now, it's not looking spectacular. Let me kick it up over here towards the solar flare department. Only a 40% chance of a C flare, it looks like, from these sunspots. Let's see what we got. When was this taken? August 8th. Pretty recent image. 3071, 3074. A couple newly named sunspots here. Might be growing, but, you know, solar maximum, we're heading into it here in a couple years. You know, we're at the beginning stages. We should be ramping up pretty nicely, but even if we have 50 sunspots here on the visible disk here, Earth facing, if none are super complex and, you know, waiting to create that special spark between the polarity of the fields there, we won't get anything. You know, we might get a couple C's and maybe a lower M, but we definitely need some good intermixing to create those larger flares. All right, let's see what else we got here. I think that's about it, folks. We'll be back a little bit later on tonight with the update. Enjoy your Monday. And like I said, I don't know why these ones are kicking up here on the board. I have it set to about 2.1 and above. But hey, we'll watch it. And we'll see how the day prevails following this pretty good solar storm overnight. All right, guys. Take it easy. Stay safe out there. We'll catch you later. Peace out.